live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality. Even larks and katydids are supposed by some to dream. Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against the hills, holding darkness within. It had stood for 80 years and might stand for 80 more. Within, walls continued upright, bricks met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there walked alone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of JKL Media Reviews, where this time me and Karen are taking Jesse by both his hands and dragging him into Hill House. So with that set up, probably one of the most famous first paragraphs of a horror novel in literature, let me introduce my hosts. And with me is Karen. Hello, Karen.
Hello.
And Jesse.
Hello, Lou. It is so good to be back after it feels more than just a week, but I am thrilled to be back talking to two of my best friends about an interesting miniseries.
Yes. And I think I was talking to Karen before you came on the air that the order that we had done of introducing you to Mike Flanagan's Flaniverse of horror, I guess you could say, is that I think we've taken the right approach for somebody like you who is not really a horror fan to start with Midnight Mass and Blind Manor and ease you into Haunting of Hill House, which is probably his most straight up horror series, but it's so tied to the characters, to the family unit, that we're hoping that you're going to enjoy this journey.
Oh, I'm sold already.
Awesome.
Good.
So
Yeah.
Your first thoughts on the two episodes, Stephen Sees a Ghost and Open Casket.
Yeah, and I assume you're wanting to stick with me.
Sure.
So candidly, I'm a little confused at first because of the two different timelines. And it's not that I didn't understand it was two different timelines. I had a little trouble connecting who is young character versus older character. And so thank goodness for IMDb and Wikipedia. I realized that probably if I had kept watching, it would have explained it to myself, but I wanted to cheat. So I did do that. And,
That's not cheating.
I really enjoyed both episodes a great deal. Was happy though. A lot of times you go, oh, darn it, why can't I move on to the next episode? I watched one of them on Friday night. I watched the next one on Saturday. And I feel comfortable with this pacing, that I don't feel like I need to binge this one, partly because it is a little bit creepy. And also I will probably go back and watch both episodes again before I watch episode 3 and 4. I just have really I love the cast, and the story is very interesting. And even though I'm not a horror fan, I'm almost tempted to read the original novel because I did do a deep dive in Wikipedia, and I promise I'll let Karen talk in a minute, that this is considered one of the best horror novels of all time.
Yep.
And it truly is critically acclaimed. And I read and you could tell that in it says he just takes the basic premise. And so I didn't spoil anything by reading this, but wow, that's a fascinating. I wonder if it would hold up, because sometimes classics don't hold up. Other times, like Casablanca or The Day the Earth Stood Still, you go, yeah, this is really good. It doesn't matter whether it was made in 2025 or 1939. This is just a great movie. And I'm wondering if the book would be that level.
Oh, it definitely is, but it is a different story. If you want, you should check out the Robert Wise movie adaptation because it follows the book pretty closely.
Okay.
And it's a black and white movie, but still it does a pretty good job. But
Okay.
I'm very I'm very heartened for that you're enjoying it so far. I'm going to ask you this question, but I'm going to come back. I'm going to ask Karen first. So Karen, we were talking about this a little bit again before we came on air. It was a little bit weird revisiting this, wasn't it?
A little bit. Yeah. as you watched it when it first landed, right?
Yes. And
Yeah,
I even went out and bought the Blu-ray.
Did you really?
Yeah.
It has extra features on it, right?
Yes, it does. It has extra scenes in a couple of episodes, plus 4 episodes of a director commentary.
Oh boy, I might have to get that then. But yeah, I watched it the day it came out on Netflix because I was so intrigued. I'm a low-key fan of Shirley Jackson. I read The Lottery, God, middle school age. I was well advanced in my reading by that point, and it it was profound for me. And
if you don't mind, I'm going to interrupt just for a minute. I remember reading the short story, but after they played a film of it in high school.
Oh, okay.
And I was so captivated by that story.
Yeah.
It basically became the basis for the Hunger Games.
Yeah, the idea of, and they don't explain everything. You don't know why this happens. And the idea of the mom all of a sudden, this wasn't before, was the most prolific supporter of what this has to happen until it hits them. And apologize, skip ahead for a minute if you are tired of us talking politics. I feel that's happening to people that were so pro Donald Trump till now, then, that some of the stuff he's doing, like he had a lot of Hispanic support. And I think all of a sudden now, then, oh, you mean it's going to happen to me, not someone else? Anyway.
And the economy and all that stuff. Yeah. And I think it was like an allegory for things that happen in real life. Obviously, a lot of literature is like that, especially speculative fiction. And so when I saw the trailer for this, I thought, okay, that's awesome. And I even like that it's very loosely adapted. It's inspired by Shirley Jackson's book, because then he can take it and like modernize it and turn it into a different thing. And all he has to do is say what's inspired by, which I think that's great. I love when a creator actually, number one, adapts an older work into a newer thing and then gives it full credit. There are a lot of times people lift from other works and they just ignore the original work. But I really love how respectful Flanagan is to this sort of thing. We saw it Bly Manor, Hill House, Bly Manor, and Follow the House of Usher, sorry, where he takes themes from earlier works and translates them. But anyway, there's so many allegories in Hill House, and I call it horror. Definitely, it's a horror story, but it's also based around the family, and it's also like an allegory for the stages of grief. And there's a lot of the things that hurt us make us stronger vibes in it. And I love this so much. I loved it when I first watched it. I did a partial rewatch a couple of years ago, but I didn't actually end up finishing it. Other stuff got me sidetracked. But going back to it now and watching it with closer eyes is a revelation, I think. And it does make me feel old because it feels like yesterday, but it was 2018.
And pre-COVID.
Lou and I were talking about how things that were before COVID feel like yesterday because of that accordion time perception thing where like our lives were on hold for those 2.5 years. But yeah, I loved going back. And here's the clincher for me that makes this very enjoyable. I talked my husband into watching it with me.
Oh, cool.
He's never seen it. And I thought, hey, I think he'd really like this. And he was very taken with it after the first 2 episodes.
Cool.
So
cool.
He is not quite as happy with waiting.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Jesse, just curious, are you watching it with your wife at all, or?
No, I just didn't, and partly because often our schedules don't align. And so that I may ask her to watch it later because she watched Midnight Mass with me, and
Right.
she watched The Usher without me.
Oh,
And so I haven't taken time to watch that yet. So many things to watch and not enough
absolutely.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, before we get to the specifics, can you both explain? Karen did a little bit of why she wanted to watch this because of the writer, but were how did you discover this creator? And because it seems like you've been a fan of his for a while. And was there something specific that made you recognize him and want to follow his work?
This was the series that did it for me.
Oh, okay.
And I came into it because I'm a big fan of the book. And I was
Okay.
curious to see a 10 episode adaptation of Hill House. How are they going to pull this off? Because that would be the Robert Weiss movie, I think, is under 2 hours, I think, and that covered the book pretty well. So I was curious to see
Okay.
how he could expand it. And then when I saw what he was doing with the two parallel time or the two timelines with the adult and children members of the Crane family, it's Crane, right? Am I getting that right? It's
Mhm.
Crane, because that was my in to understand how he was going to make a 10 episode adaptation of this book.
Okay.
And I just want to touch upon, and as we've seen from his other series, he has a really good sense of character, and he has a really good eye for horror, the way he composes scenes and edits it and all that sort of stuff. But I do want to touch on 2 points that Karen made that I think were very important. This adaptation is, you could say, it's loosely based on it, but if it's one of the most tightly coupled, loosely based adaptation I've seen, because it doesn't lose sight of the Hill House itself is a character, as you'll see more and more as the series goes on. And the fundamental driving plot of the book and the series is the mental state of the characters. And it's in the book, it's much more is this all in the character's mind, or is this really happening? In the show, it's more blatantly this is really happening, but in the characters' minds, they're never really sure if it is or not, if they're going crazy or whatnot. So I think that's very important to point out. And the other thing is the casting is like I don't know who I like better. Do I like the children version better, or do I like the adult version of these characters better? And I guess I ending up saying I like both of them equally. I just think that they're really talented, and they just really each play their characters so well. You've got, and this series was the first one I saw Flanagan, so I wasn't aware of this sort of like the Flanagan universe of actors that he likes to build up. But he's got a stable of actors, so we're seeing a lot of characters. If you're coming to it from watching one of his other series, you're seeing a lot of characters that were in the other series that are in this one, and it just shows the range of talent of some of them, especially Oliver Jackson Cohen, who plays the adult version of Luke. He was in Bly Manor as Peter Quint, and a much different character, a very suave, manipulative thing. Jesse, you're
Yes, as I'm raising my hand, pick me, teacher. I did not realize till the end of episode 2, when he shows up at the wedding, that I went, oh, wait, that's that guy?
Yeah.
And then I remembered you guys had said when we were talking Bly Manor, oh, yeah, man, he plays a totally different kind of character in Hill House. And I went,
right.
What? That's wait a minute. How did that happen?
Yeah.
I felt like I was watching Penn and Teller. Wait, what? How did that happen? No, that's impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a 180
Yeah.
from Peter Quint.
Yeah, probably closer in personnel and characteristics is Victoria Peretti's Nell, who feels very similar to Danny in Bly Manor. Still, and I think my favorite pairing of past and present characters is the duo of Henry Thomas and Timothy Hutton as the father. I just think that the creative team really nailed it with those two actors. Of course, we have Carla Gugino, who's playing the wife, Olivia. In Bly Manor, she played Jamie, the storyteller of Bly Manor. So that's interesting. And it's just amazing casting. I can see why Flanagan wants to stick with certain actors because they're just so good in any role. And he's built up, it's even snowballed a bit more now. He's been casting Mark Hamill. And you wonder yourself, why wasn't Mark Hamill in more stuff after Star Wars and whatnot? Because he's done a lot of voice work, but he's such a great actor too. And I'm looking forward to seeing him in this upcoming Life of Chuck, as well as The Long Walk, in which he plays the bad guy. So that will be interesting to see. So
he complained a lot about being typecast when Star Wars first ended, and you can tell. I love that he's done so many cool things.
Absolutely. Now. And I think typecasting has become less of an issue in today's world.
Agreed.
You know, back in the 60s and 70s, like a lot of the actors from the original Star Trek, they couldn't get other work pretty rarely.
People are much more savvy.
Yeah. So, as there's just a lot to take in here because of our background with the Flanaverse, as I like to call it, with all his various projects and whatnot. I'm crossing my fingers that he gets to make his Dark Tower series, but we'll have to see about that. Right now, the latest project he's got coming is another adaptation of Carrie, but this time it's a 10-episode series for Amazon, so that'll be interesting to see. But let's return to Hill House. And the first episode is Steven Sees a Ghost. And I usually like to approach the shows from character perspectives, but because there's so many characters, I think I'm going to do the timelines approach to this.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So let's start with the present characters. And we're starting with the opening scenes with Steven. Jesse, I'm going to be coming to you first every time on this because I want you to hear your thoughts first, and no slight to Karen, but just that she knows the character. No. So I don't want her to color your perception. What do you think of Steven as a character? He's the oldest of the Crane children.
So it is, I'm still trying to get it, and that's one of the reasons I want to rewatch both new episodes. He was very comforting as talking to his two younger siblings. It's okay, let's talk about it. It also, I thought, was an interesting scene of setting up some exposition, but just it felt natural. That one of the things this is going to be surprising, but at least it was to me, is my son Chris, huge WWE wrestling fan, and he has starting a few months ago, he said, "Hey, Dad, can you watch this just for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And there is a character, a wrestler called CM Punk. And I've been fascinated because this guy is amazing on the mic. He starts talking to the crowd, and it's 2 or 3 minutes, and then all of a sudden he's turned into shtick. Like, "Hey, brother, I'm gonna get you down." He just casually just feels like he's talking to you, and all of a sudden you realize he's turned into character, and he's really good at it. And the reason I'm bringing this up is this has brought us up about storytelling. Chris and I are talking about, notice he said the guy's name, and I said yes. If you notice, like one of the things Tom Zoller always talks about, and it's every comic is someone's first comic, so therefore you need to have your character call someone by a name, but it has to be natural, and it can't be, well, as when you're talking about things expedition. And I thought this was really well done. It set the expectation. They have a lot of children, a lot of siblings. What they do is they buy houses, they remodel, they flip them, and they move forward. And that, I won't say they're absent parents because that's not the case at all, but it does seem like the older brother has taken on this very maternal, paternal role of, I am the big brother, I need to protect my people, I'm there, we don't need to wake everyone else up. I like him a lot, and that is partly because I really like the older character. When you meet him and you realize he's a best-selling author and he does this investigation. I just think he's I won't say he's my favorite character, but he's one of my favorite characters. The idea of this burden of being the oldest, whether he needs to be or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about the oldest daughter, Shirley?
Yeah, and so I haven't gotten enough of the young one yet. Now, which one is she in the old one?
Shirley is the oldest daughter. She's the one that looks after the kittens or tries to look after the kittens, and then she
Yes,
grows up to become the funeral director.
that's who I thought it was.
Yeah.
I love that actress.
Mm.
And I like that character. I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I understand her. Look, I'm going to do this for my sister. And everyone going, nah, I'm jumping ahead, but I thought, what a powerful moment. Often, I don't know about you two, but my career was never driven to me. I just fell into something. And to have her, that moment where she was afraid to see her mom, and that funeral director goes, takes her, walks her to, and I love the duplicate storyline, right? She's doing that for a young man that's worried about his grandmother. She does this, and that highlight of you did this magic. It's the same way of someone who was inspired by a doctor or a nurse young because they were sick, or someone who was in a trauma and saw a police officer and did this or something. That idea, I loved that. And just like you were talking about, by far, I'm more sold on the older siblings than I am the younger ones.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I want to rewatch the first two to try to understand a little bit more who's who and get a feeling for the young ones.
Yeah, I think the feeling for the younger ones will come more as the series plays out for you, for sure.
Okay. Did I answer your question? I felt like I'm rambling.
No, that's fine. It's, as you said, it's difficult in these early episodes to separate the storylines, so that's not a problem. Tio, as a child, is the second oldest daughter, and she doesn't really get a lot of screen time in these first two episodes, so I'm not really going to ask for you to say too much about her. And the two youngest children, Nell and Luke, who share the bedroom, just your thoughts on those two characters. And I'll just want to mention it that the actress who plays Nell, she also has a brief appearance in the Dr. Sleep movie at the very beginning.
So I liked the younger, like the whole treehouse scene and the back and forth of things. So I don't know much about them yet. I'm still trying to get a feel for them because and I'm pulling up IMDb so I can quit talking. Like Theodora, I love Kate Sagal. I have such a big crush on her. Every role she's played in this that we've seen, I've adored her. And there's no difference in this one. Picking up the college student with all the tats and, okay, I'm done with you. You got to have your fun. Now I'm done. And I'm intrigued that, and I read this, right? The reason she wears gloves is she's sensitive. So I can't wait to hear more about her. So I adore her. And so far, I haven't gotten anything except Luke's just an F up. And I realize that addiction is a real thing. It is, but you feel for I feel more for the siblings that are trying to help him than I do for him. And I think that's because we haven't spent enough time with him yet. I'm sure I will start having more empathy for him there. But yeah, I'm still getting to know the other characters as much.
Okay, fair enough. Karen, what are your thoughts on the children version of the characters?
They are played so well. Unlike Bly Manor, you like the children right away, right? Mm-hmm. Like in Bly Manor, they're not very likable right up front.
Yeah.
I think the casting is impeccable on these younger versions. Just and they're incredibly, I don't know, prosaic. Are they like they really have an intuitive feel for those characters? So whether it's through being cast well by Mike Flanagan or being directed well or both, I think it was amazing the jobs they did there. It's not easy for Jesse, having just come into this, but to me, knowing the older characters, it's easy to compare the two and say, yeah, that's her, that's her.
Yeah.
And they have a very, I think they've all gone on to do other things. The child character of Nell, Violet McGraw, was in like Ready Player One and some other stuff. McKenna Grace has done a lot of things. She plays Theodora. Julian Hilliard, who was Luke, I don't know a lot of stuff that he's done, but I thought he was great. Lulu Wilson was Shirley, and wow, that acting as a, I don't know, early teen, I guess, with the cats and all that stuff, crazy good. You mentioned Henry Thomas in the older timeline. He's not one of the kids, but wow, what great casting there between him and Timothy Hutton. It's almost like you can see that Henry Thomas grows up to be Timothy Hutton, right?
You really can.
And Mikhail Hussman, that's his name. He's the older Stephen, which, by the way, is a nod to Stephen King, which I love as well. And Paxton Singleton was the younger version of Stephen Crane, who was incredibly mature for his age. And that, again, you can see both of them as one person almost. And I think that really does come down to Flanagan's casting choices. And we do mention that he has this stable of actors, and most of these actors, their older versions, are in that stable of actors. And I love that he has so much faith in them that he doesn't cast them in the same role over and over. They all have a different feel to them when they're cast in something else. I'm just like Annabeth Gish has played different characters in each.
Yeah.
Completely different characters in each iteration of her Flanagan roles.
And oh, what a lovely, right, to see her play that role.
The
Just
Dudley,
that small little role.
Yep.
Yeah. And
yeah, as a Jesus freak. When she easily could have been put in that role in Midnight Mass as the Jesus freak, but she's not. She's actually like a doctor and a completely different character. I know I'm getting off a little bit, but I love the younger versions of these characters, and especially that we get their whole personality almost in those first two episodes, except for Theodora, who we don't see a lot of. We see her being like a surly teen, but we do get a feel for all those characters. And you knew that Nell and Luke were twins, right? You understood that from the show, Jesse, that they were twins?
no.
They shared the bedroom?
Yeah, but I didn't know that.
Okay.
I did not get that. Yeah.
So they're fraternal twins, obviously.
Okay.
Obviously fraternal is what I mean. They are twins, and that kind of plays into things later. I just wanted to know whether you understood that.
I do not.
But yeah, they're twins. And I really do love that it sets up how things will go for them as adults. Very much. I just really love it.
So I want to make maybe this, I hope this is perceived right. So the sister who died and the drug addict are twins?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes it even more sad about the wedding.
Yeah, exactly. And also the fact that Stephen sees Nell in his apartment right after Luke leaves.
Yeah.
That's another connection between the two. But yeah, it's really sad. And I feel like you also get the feel that the older kids dismiss those two in their older forms. They're very dismissive of Nell because, she has all these problems, which just becomes more and more tragic over the course of the 10 episodes. And they're also they just want to throw money at Luke. They don't really care about any underlying issues with him. and they're just like, oh, he's a screw up here. I'll give you money, whatever. And they pay to put him in rehab without really even, they just don't care about why he might be an addict. At least that's my feeling. And
yeah, I haven't been enough to, I just was like 6,000 a month. Good Lord. Is
so
Mhm.
he,
3,000 a piece.
yeah,
And that's the almost present day timeline where Stephen isn't a best-selling author yet. That's even a bigger hit.
yeah.
And I do that we have that kind of intermediary kind of 5 years ago timeline or whatever it is as well.
Mhm.
So we get a little backstory on the adult version as well.
Yeah.
I know I'm rambling as well, but I just wanted to really emphasize how great these counterparts are to each other. And again, it continues through the 10 episodes. There's no faltering in that.
Yeah. So this is I'm at a difficult point here because I have a lot to say, but I don't want to say it yet because if I do, I'll color what Jesse's reaction to it.
Yeah, I walked that tightrope too just
so
now.
yeah, so I guess just the thing I would
So,
just say is pay attention to why is the show constructed the way it is, and
okay.
how does
And
one inform the other? Is all I'll
yeah,
say for now.
and I'm getting the feeling, and I
Mhm.
realize that this is, I hope I'm on the right path, and this may be duh, Jesse, but right, obviously something happened to the mom, and this was a very defining moment in every child's life, including the father, right?
Yeah,
Because we've seen this in the idea that, and this is somehow a somewhat famous event because that's why he got the big he by writing about it he got a big advance. The
yeah,
father talking about press and everything, and how the trauma of losing a mom alone is pretty tough. But then whenever you determine what else it is, it feels like each of the five siblings have the scars of this event, and it appears the show is going to be how they dealt with them,
right.
the ripple effects of whatever happened. And
You're
I
on the
think
right
this,
track.
and the storyline is we're seeing the effect of the ripples, then, and then we're going to go back to, and this does feel like, and I think Flanagan likes to do this. I'm going to tell you this story, and I'm going to give you enough that you're going to follow along. But much like Sixth Sense, on a rewatch, you go,
Yeah,
oh,
definitely.
1,000%, yes.
Yes, definitely. Let's tackle this next. This is a supernatural show.
Can I interrupt real quick? I'm
Sure.
sorry. This is terrible. I want to put this in before we talk more about it. I want to let you know, I know you both haven't seen this movie, but one of the writers, she's one of the co-writers. Her name is Charisse Castro Smith. She co-wrote this and also Encanto, the movie Encanto. And there's a big parallel between the two, which you wouldn't think of, but
you,
there's a house with children and family members and dysfunction and all kinds of stuff that I don't know whether Flanagan had that in mind when he pulled her in, but there are definite parallels between the two projects. And I really want you guys to watch Encanto, to be fair, but
why don't, that'll be our next thing. We'll do a one up.
no, that's up to
No,
you. It's a
no, I
Disney
think it'd be
movie.
fun. Yeah, I know. It'd
But
be
yeah,
interesting.
there's
Is
some
that
parallels between the children as well.
is that
Okay.
a movie or a series?
It's a movie.
All right.
It's a animated film.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But there's a Luke counterpart, there's a
Oh,
Nell counterpart.
okay. So
Okay.
let's talk about this then. This is a supernatural show, so there are supernatural elements to it. I can list them off, or Jesse, I will just have you talk about the ones that you remember, and if you've forgotten any, I'll point them out to
Okay.
you. But let's go with the softball. Steven sees a ghost. What did you think
Yeah.
about that?
And as much as they tell her, no, everything's fine. And then the episode ends with the ghost is there again. Right? Yeah. F you, Big Brother, F you, Dad. Yes, I'm telling you, this is here. Give me a ring of salt. Do something, right? You never watch Supernatural. So obviously you can't, I cannot tell the bugs coming out of the bodies. Is that reality? Is that a vision? But it is a reoccurring theme where bugs, ants, different things come out of it. It looks like there is a dead cat looking over the kittens. Then oh no, see, it was just a wasp nest, right? And then they show the blank mask and they go, see, this isn't scary at all. And I go, yes, it is.
Yep.
Yes, that is. That's scary.
Yeah.
By the way, I love the son. I want to be Daredevil. Here, you can make your own. And he makes Lame. I'm Captain Lame. Okay. I
love that the dad calls him Captain Lame at the table. That's so funny.
I normally I'm gonna back the parent, but at this point I do no, this is not that's not what I'm not wanting a craft project. I just want to be Daredevil.
Right.
Go down, pay the $25, get me a stupid Daredevil costume. So we hear dogs that don't exist, right? We hear unlike with Blind Manor with the water and all the other stuff, we don't have that, but we do at least know we hear dogs barking that don't exist, according to the Dudleys. We get the seeing of ghosts. We get the kittens that have no mom and they all die, which, by the way, why do you not have a heat lamp? If you're going to try to save these kittens, it seems like you could have set up a heat lamp, kept them where they are, fed them their milk, and then in case the mom does come back, they could take care of them. That was a dumb plan on their part.
Yeah.
So
the parents set her up for failure, essentially.
Yes. I don't quite understand the young daughter, the twin, right? That we see the scenes in the house, all kinds of weird things are happening. And then her appearance after her death, then like she sits up at the funeral home. So a lot of really creepy crap going on. What I miss?
There was the one where all the siblings woke up at the same time in the middle of the night.
Yep.
Yeah, I did not catch that.
Yeah.
Yep. 3:03 a.m.
Yeah, depending on the time zone, it always ended in 03. I think Stevens was 12:03.
Okay.
But he's in California, and Cheryl is in Boston.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 3 hours difference.
Yep.
So that was one thing, and they all reached to their neck.
Oh yeah, I did not catch that.
Keep that in mind. And what does Nell call the ghost that she sees? The bent neck lady. What does Nell call the ghost?
Oh yeah, the broken leg. Yeah, the broken lady. Yeah.
Yeah, the broken lady. So there was that, and I think put a pin on it. I think it's very important to note that Steven saw the ghost and not any of the other siblings. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Because if you watch the adult Steven, when he's at that woman's house trying to see whether or not there's a ghost, he's approaching it from a very scientific perspective, let's say, whereas all the other siblings are not as bound to perceived and measurable, quantifiable, provable, objective data as he is. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well. Karen, any others you want to mention?
I want to say so much, but I can't.
Yeah.
They all seem to have a different connection to the house. So I think that's set up here in the first couple of episodes. They all have a different relationship to the house, because we see Luke seeing the kid in the woods and drawing the pictures of his friend in the woods.
Yeah. And we see the friend in the wood.
Yep. In the second episode, where we see like that kind of fuzzy little kid in the woods. We see that Olivia has these dreams of a forever house, which I find forever house is a term that people use. But in this case, it's ironic that she says forever house and there's Hill House.
Yeah. And there's the model of the forever house.
Yep.
And
Olivia has one.
The little porch light comes on at the end of the second episode. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff like that. And we see that Theo, she says she's a germaphobe. We know that's not all to it. We can infer that there's some connection between the gloves and the house and what has gone down with her. And I don't know whether I should bring up the stages of grief here or not, but at the very least, I'm going to say that Stephen is denial. He wants to disprove all of this. He doesn't want to believe what he saw as a child, what things he went through as a child. And that's a lot of why he chose this profession, writing fiction, going to these houses to pull inspiration, but ultimately making sure the person realizes you're not seeing a ghost. It's this. It's you got a leak in your roof. And you notice dogs are barking outside when he's sleeping in that room. There are things that carry over from their time at Hill House to adulthood, but they've carried baggage as well that affects them in ways they don't realize.
So is it, and you tell me, Lou, because I had not seen that. I saw what you're doing, but I've not put that in the terms of each child represents a different
stage of grief.
Yeah. Is that spoilery if she goes through that?
I don't want to talk about the other ones yet.
Okay. So
I just feel like they set up Stephen already as being denial.
I will remind you don't need to do it
here.
You
can look it up if you want
to. Exactly.
But,
I will remind myself what the stages of grief are. I know the last is acceptance and denial and anger and all this. Yes.
I think it's easy to see that Olivia's anger.
Yeah.
She's got the anger in there. And I think, okay, I'm not going to say that. It might surprise you.
Yeah.
Which stage of grief they are. But
okay, good.
But at the very least, you can see that Stephen is denial. And it does kind of outline that Olivia's anger because she pushes back. And I think the mask motif was interesting in these. There's masks several times in these episodes. And the fact that Olivia, her profession is making someone look like they used to when they were alive, which is essentially painting a mask on that person. And it's almost like she wants her son to do the same thing that she does. So I find that interesting as well.
Side note, have either of you watched the John Candy Only the Lonely movie?
Yes.
Is that with,
so good
with Maureen O'Hara?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. And one of my favorite films. I just think it showed what he was so much more than just a comedic actor.
Yeah.
But Ali Sheedy plays someone in a funeral home, and she always makes the person look like a celebrity.
Yeah.
And so anytime I see that, I could be like, oh, I wonder if she's gonna make him look like a celebrity. So just a random thought.
Yeah. That's very funny.
Yeah. The other big supernatural event is, of course, with Shirley. After she's finished preparing Nell, she's about to leave the room, and she sees her mother as a ghost. Again, I think it's interesting that the older characters are the ones that are seeing these ghosts, at least so far in the story. That's something to bear in mind, and I won't say anything more about that. I'm curious, Jesse, out of all the kids, which one do you say has their shit together better?
It appears the older one, right?
Which Stephen?
Yeah. It appears as the kid. He seems to be.
Interesting, because I would have thought you would have said Shirley, because she chews him out on the phone for not following up on Nell and her dad and that.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. You're asking the older siblings, not the younger siblings.
Yeah, the older siblings. Yes.
Oh, then
sorry.
Rewind. Sorry. The Shirley, because she's good at what she does. She seems to have a pretty successful marriage. He obviously is concerned about her giving away the store, but she is not in this for I'm always struck by people that go into the funeral home business. It is a recession-proof business, and it is a very profitable business. But most people go into this because they want to help people during a difficult time. And it's very clear that's what Shirley is about. And the idea, and him, I love that the husband, in their discussion, they're both right. This is a horrible time for people. Why do this if we can't help them? And he's like, but we can't help them if we don't stay in the black. And she goes, we are in the black. And he goes, barely. So I love their adult discussion and him doing that. So by far, she was the one who could write a check. She is the one that made the decision to tell Luke, no, you can't show up effed up. I'll keep our G rating at your sister's wedding. Here's $100. That'll pay for the cab, and then shoot the rest of it. I don't even care. So obviously, she is the one that, and I love her line because I'm the oldest. Oh no, wait, that's you. And so we had a weird dynamic because there were just three of us. So I can imagine with five siblings, right? There is that dynamic. So yeah, she is my favorite character now that I'm talking about it.
Shirley?
I love everything about Shirley. And I think she's trying to do the most she can do, right? Like she is trying to do everything she can to help her family, to help her siblings. And she also seems to take dad with a grain of salt, right? But yeah, I love her.
Yeah, she's great. I like Elizabeth Reeser as an
she had a pretty significant role in Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, she was great. Where her face was mangled up, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right. And Alex falls in love with her.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like her.
Me too. And I think that's where I first saw her as well.
Yeah, and I think she has an interesting look as an actress.
Agreed.
She is I find her very attractive, but not in a necessarily glamour way, though.
She's not conventionally beautiful.
That is the best way to say it. Yeah, she's really good. I love watching her.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, yeah. Stephen is interesting as the adult character. And just as a side note, his wife in the series is played by Samantha Sloyan, who did play a religious freak in a Michael Flanagan production in Midnight Mass. She was Bev Keane. A totally different look with her long hair and that. Just interesting.
Ooh, I did not catch that.
Yeah. But she doesn't have a big role, so it's not something that would jump out at you as much. But so
wow, that can't be the same actress.
It is.
It is.
Wow, I'm just looking at that.
Yeah.
Oh, and she's a big part in Full House of Usher.
She's one of the siblings.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up that Stephen point before I lost it. Just going back to Shirley now, I found it very interesting, and Karen has already brought up the mass aspect, because that's what she does when she's preparing her clients, if you want to call them that, for their final appearance. And the mask that she gives her son, she wants him to be creative with it, but she's a very practical person. So I found that interesting. I think that was meant as an indicator that subconsciously she wants her child to have something that she's not really able to do, or at least the only way she can express her creativity is by restoring people so that they look presentable upon their funeral appearance. That was an interesting character piece that I thought was really lovely done in the show. There's still so much to talk about, but I don't know, we're hitting, I think, the limits of what we should do for an episode. But I just have to mention Carla Gugino. I'll just get quick thoughts from everybody. She plays a very interesting character, and because of what happens to her, she's the only one that doesn't have an adult counterpart, or a present counterpart, you could say. The fact that she has migraines is interesting, and take a note of what she said about what color she saw. That might jump out at you in a later episode. Henry Thomas is a very accommodating husband, father, I guess you could say. But his counterpart, Timothy Hutton, seems a little clueless or unmoored, maybe is the best way to say
Mhm.
it. And there was again another supernatural element with him that was very subtle when he's lying in bed and this arm comes around. Whose arm was that? We'll have to see. But yeah, just it's just hard to cover all the actors in a podcast like this, but they're all doing fantastic jobs. This time, Karen, I'll let you go first. What do you think about the other actors that we haven't really mentioned? Because the adults really haven't had as much screen time as the children and the siblings.
Yeah, I think Anthony Ruvivar, who plays Kevin Harris, Shirley's husband, I think they really set him up very well in these two episodes. You get to see that, like, where Shirley is practical, but she also has a side that doesn't want to acknowledge the money side of things. Kevin is that he wants to be her grounding force, and she just doesn't, she brushes it off a little bit. I'm trying to, Levy Tran, who plays Trish, that's who Theo brings home. I thought that was an interesting dynamic between the two, where she's Theodora, her nickname is Theo, and she is essentially the guy, right? You can see yourself out, kind of thing. I thought she did a good job playing that person that kind of wants to get into a relationship with Theo, is very taken by her, and Theo just doesn't. Out, you got to go. I think the Harris kids were great as well, especially her son. And Jaden is his name. Also, the funeral director in the past with the mustache and beard. Do you remember him?
Yes.
Okay. He's played by James Flanagan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know that he's in anything else, any other Flanagan project, but I thought he was really good in this, in the tiny little role he had. And of course, the Dudleys. I thought the Dudley husband was an interesting character. That, hey, what do you call it? That home improvement type character, right? Oh,
Yeah.
ooh. And then it's interesting that he's married to this Jesus freak kind of character, Annabeth Gish's character. And I really do find them interesting, even in these first two episodes where, they say, oh, there's no dogs. And they're talking about how they don't live on the property and they don't really elaborate as to why. And it's just,
And we don't live here. Okay.
no one lives close to Hill
Yeah.
House, they're saying. And the Cranes don't really cotton on to that. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. It's just a house. We do this all the time.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're like early adopters of the flipping thing, because this is in the 80s or early 90s. There was also an Easter egg when we go into the tree house with Luke. There is an ET lunchbox.
Oh,
and
I
of
did
course,
not see that.
We know that Henry Thomas, who plays the father in the past, was
Right.
Elliot.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
in ET.
Elliot.
Yeah, he loves the little Easter eggs. And also, and I'm not going to tell you to look for these because it's not something you should do on your first watch, but there's lots of ghosts in the background.
Okay.
So
similar to with Bly Manor.
Correct.
As you look over, there's okay. And then it's later explained, right? Like that manor is like this ghost trap.
Exactly.
And so everyone who dies there can't leave. Okay.
Yeah, the house is definitely a character. These ghosts are way more visible, in my opinion, than they were. It's a very subliminal thing, but because they put the action here or whatever, and that's where you're looking. And then there's something elsewhere in the frame. But I tell you, please don't look for them.
Okay. But if I see them.
Sure. I'm just saying they're all over. This is like a signature of his where he puts things outside your viewing area in the frame that give a feel. They subliminally give you a feel of creepiness.
Okay.
Yeah, there's stuff like that. I love that he does things like that. And I only mention it here because you saw that in Bly Manor. That he did that in Bly Manor. I wouldn't mention it otherwise, but
okay.
I highly encourage you not to look for them.
Like I said, I now definitely know that I will watch the first two again before I watch 3 and 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he really puts them in there as like things that fans of his can go back and find, or just something that kind of gives a creepy vibe to the frame or whatever. I don't think I have anything else because I really don't want to ruin anything. It's difficult to talk about these because they're so interconnected, the episodes, and okay,
Yeah,
I'll leave it.
There's very much a sixth sense kind of storytelling vibe here, because once you get to the end, you want to go back and review it again and say, "Oh, okay, that's why
I
this
see
was
that.
here." Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Jesse, any thoughts on any other characters that we haven't spent a lot of time with?
There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of interactions. Like you mentioned, Steven's estranged from his wife, and we got to see a little bit of her, and never in 1,000 words would have picked that up. And it is, yeah, so far, I think this is I keep going, God, that guy, oh, that guy. So a really strong cast, and it is, the storytelling is so strong. It's okay, because yeah, this is not something I would watch just out of fun, just because it's not something I don't enjoy this genre, but it's really nicely done.
Can I ask, do you have any lingering questions after these first two episodes?
Should.
Yeah, what happened to the mom?
Yeah.
Why, how did this become so famous that him writing a book about it was able to be pushed him forward? Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm confused about, but overall I'm okay.
Very good. And
Great.
the final spooky image I'll leave everyone with was Nell in the house dancing, apparently by herself.
Yes, that was, and I assume there was someone she was dancing with.
Right.
That only she could see is
Right.
what I got the picture of.
All righty. So that is the first two episodes of The Haunting of Hill House in the books. Next time we'll be back with episodes 3 and 4, Touch and the Twin Thing. And hopefully Jesse will be even more engrossed as we get to explore these characters as their adult and children, the younger counterparts going forward. So with that, Jesse, if people want to get in touch with you, where should they go?
So I am available at Jesse Jackson DFW on X, aka Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Jesse Jackson on Facebook. I talked a little bit about this before, but it is now out. If you go to Set Lusting Bruce, and I have an episode that came out this week as we're recording this called Jesse Lou Lawson from Because the Boss Belongs to Us. Is Bruce a queer icon? Jesse Lou had done a whole episode, they and Holly had done a series of episodes talking about, is Bruce Springsteen a queer icon? And it is a fascinating series of episodes. And Jesse was a wonderful guest. And I'm really proud of that interview. So it's available wherever you can find Set Lusting Bruce. Even if you're not normally a Bruce Springsteen fan, I think this is really interesting. We get a lot into politics, gender identity, acceptance. It's a fun conversation about an important topic. So please check that out.
All righty. And Karen, how about you? Where can people find you?
You can email the show at JKL Media Reviews. Okay, I gotta pull that up again. Sorry.
Yes,
Sorry.
JK.
JKL Media Reviews at gmail.com. That's also our YouTube channel, JKL Media Reviews, where you will find this and all our other projects. We do one-offs. We did Blind Manor, as we mentioned. Lou and I just did an adolescence episode. We talked about 13 monkeys, 12 monkeys, 12 monkeys. Man, you can tell I have a migraine. Sorry. Yeah, we've done a lot of other stuff there. Me personally, I am at Oliveria on whatever social media platform you wish to find me on. And my blog is alleystuff.com.
Very good. And you can find me on YouTube at Lose Reviews, where you'll find our completed journey of the Babylon 5 series, plus the 2023 animated movie. We also have my writer interviews and my Stephen King podcasts. And on our main JKL Media Reviews YouTube channel, you'll find all our JKL Media episodes. There are a couple of recent ones that we just did. As Karen mentioned, we just did the 4-episode Adolescence series on Netflix, which was shot in one continuous camera shot for each episode, which makes for quite a different viewing experience. And so check that out. And as an added bonus, we added a April 1st version of Set Lusting Bruce episode, which features a different boss than the one that you're expecting. And Jesse and Karen had a lot of fun doing that, and you should check that out if you want a couple of chuckles. And on the socials, you could find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lou W. Sitzma. And with that, I bid you all adieu, and until next time, take care now, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.